what's all going on. And I'm assuming costs are dropping, right?
uh, yeah. Now we're at a crap storm is what we're dealing with. Back to our favorite 2x4. 2x4 is back up to $8.40. A sheet of plywood is $96. Honestly, I would try to be involved before you submit the offer. The earlier in the process, the better. That way, you're not surprised by what you think the ballpark is. So it's not about the money; it's about the later return, right? So it's people are out here to help.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're sitting down and catching up with John from BlackJack Contracting. He's going to explain to us exactly what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, and specifically what's going on with renovations. So if you guys haven't been paying attention, our input costs when it comes to doing our renovation projects, converting a basement, doing a garden suite, doesn't matter what you're doing, maybe you're building a brand new house, but costs have increased dramatically. We knew that in 2020, but they're continuing to increase in 2021. In fact, we're really starting to see some challenges now with the supply chain. And so it's really important you guys understand the consequences here, because your projects could really quickly go off timeline, off budget, if you're not paying attention. So have you heard about the delays in windows, insulation, PVC rationing? There's a lot of different things going on. You need to be aware of this as a real estate investor. Let's catch up with John. He's going to show us what he's experiencing here in Ontario.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and we've got John from BlackJack Contracting back. Hey, John, how's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to chat today about just what's going on in 2021. We're right now kind of middle of April as the shooting of this video. What do you see on the horizon? What should we be prepared for as real estate investors or even just homeowners that are looking to maybe take on some summer projects? This time last year, a lot of people decided they wanted to get into decks and stuff like that. So love to hear just what's all going on. And I'm assuming costs are dropping, right?
Yeah. So, I know. I feel like this is a broken record. We've done this a few times now, but I wanted to do it this time. We're sitting here, as you said, early mid-April here, and we're actually at the worst of it for what we've experienced throughout the whole pandemic. We saw over the winter, pushing into the early months, we saw prices dropping and supplies rising as the cases were low and the lockdowns were low. Now we're at a crap storm is what we're dealing with. Back to our favorite 2x4. 2x4 is back up to $8.40. A sheet of plywood is $96.
Yeah, I saw some contractors freaking out on social about the cost of boards and stuff. And I was like, man, I haven't actually been paying enough attention. Like, good Lord, yeah.
So there's we use material called MDF, a lot of trim and a lot of moldings and stuff like that. Well, the factory burnt down a month ago, so there's now mass shortages. All those ice storms that happened in Texas, which happened the oil and gas industry. Now there's an insulation shortage, there's a PVC shortage, it all comes from gas byproducts. So now for PVC for your plumbing drains and all that stuff, they're on rations at the suppliers right now. Breaker, electrical, coil wire. When I was doing it full time, max ever paid was $128. Now we're at $190 for a roll. Scrap copper's in the $6 range. So be careful with all your scrap in your houses. Make sure they're locked down well. Fortunately, for plumbing, they don't use a whole lot of copper pipe anymore. It's mostly, PEX and PVC products, but it's crazy. So right now, kitchens, we use a lot of IKEA kitchens for the duplexes and rentals. We're seeing things like having to order from across the province to try to get them, seeing things where we used to be able to get next day. We're talking weeks to months. It's just wild. So now, as we're just reading here that we're probably going into a full lockdown as tomorrow. So everything's going to go back to curbside pickup. And so it's not a great time to be doing renovation projects. I mean, though a lot of people are doing renovation projects, it's as busy as I can remember it. But it's just something now we talked about last time all about the planning process and the thing. So now it's at an all-time high about planning. I won't harp on it, but it's something like if you need material for 3 weeks from now, you better order it, at least 3 weeks to 6 weeks in advance. And here's the honest truth of the matter is renovations, labor, GC's everything at an all-time high demand and hard to get. Everything across the board is 35-40% more than it was 2 years ago. So, you're just going to have to, some of these things are going to cause deals to not make sense right now, like for financial on the renovation cost and timing. So it's something like you have to be real diligent during your selection project of a deal for real estate or anything like that. And it's just some of these things are causing it to not make sense right now, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess like looking at other input costs and stuff as well. I think in the past we were touching upon maybe a few videos ago, but like other aspects like windows and other input costs are like, is it across the board you're seeing price rise or just in a few of these areas?
It's not so much price rising across the board. There's a lot of price rising. Some of it's still at the same, like drywall still at the same price. Windows are really is at the same price. It's a lot about supply and timing right now. So like windows, it used to be 2 weeks. Some of the main suppliers are now at 12 weeks, right? So it could cause you to have major delays in holding and time renovations. It takes a lot of resourcefulness right now to go and find everything. So it's not an across the board price range. It's a lot of the key aspects is at an all-time high price though. So it's something that, is going to cause overall budgets to rise drastically.
Gotcha. And then, so I guess like as real estate investors, any ideas or suggestions other than just planning in advance in order to how to adapt to this? Are you seeing investors choose different renovations? Are they deciding like,
Yes.
hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it worth my while? Or are they scaling back and trying to do the bare minimum? Or
What I'm actually finding right now is people are now searching and new and upcoming markets to try to find better deals because renovation costs aren't going down anytime soon, and they still want to get their deals done. So they're starting to look outside the box of areas that some of these names I can't even pronounce, just small towns looking for opportunities. So they're getting more and more resourceful, which is awesome.
So when are you moving to Timmins?
Not me, but I'll send somebody out there. But it's that's what I'm seeing right now, and everything's got to be done earlier. You have to budget higher. And one thing I would also recommend is I've always talked about having a contingency fund for renovations. I always said 10% was plenty. I would probably say you need to have your contingency fund almost at like 20%. Doesn't mean you're going to spend it. You don't need to tell your contractor it's there. I'm just saying that it's.
No, those are wise words, though, because a lot of people right now, I think they make the opposite mistake where they start trying to squeeze things into their budget rather than being honest with themselves. And they're like, well, I used to do a 10% reserve. I never really dipped into it, so I'll cut that now. And hey, it looks like we're still going to come in on budget. And it's like you're literally setting yourself up for failure when you take that approach. We need to have those gaps, those miscellaneous expenses, that buffer there, because reality is going to play out either way, regardless of whether you lie to yourself at the start of the project or not. So it's really important that you go into it eyes wide open.
100%. And that's the thing is I think maybe do a little more research on pricing. Doesn't mean that, not trying to be rude by that. We get a lot of calls, and then even if I was willing to do a job for free, we couldn't do the jobs for their budgets. And so that's why I'm saying it's something before you go and just rush into things. I've heard people want to do duplex conversions for $80,000 when it would cost me, 110, something like that, and like what their scope of work is. So I'm thinking before some of it, I think they need to do a little more research on what things are costing before they do it, because what happens is that say they want to work with me and that we've got a great relationship, we're great before, but I go and give them the price and it's drastically out of their budget, right? And then they become desperate. Yeah. And then they start looking for whatever bottom barrel thing they can get, and then they're having the problems. And that's not just about me, that's with a lot of people, a lot of great contractors out there, right? Rather than before you doing the deal, reaching out to your power team member and asking approximate rental costs. Now I was having this conversation the other day, like an average duplex conversion, bungalow, main floor, facelift, we're almost pushing $180,000 on average now, right? And 3 years ago we were talking, 120, 130. So it's something that I think more research is needed right now.
Yeah, really appreciate that, and it is so important because I see people like referencing prices, and like sometimes I hear them and like, you know, they're like, I'm going to do this for 50,000. And they're like, but I'll do some of the work myself. I'm like, no, you're going to have to do a lot more than some of it. I think you're going to have to do all of it, including maybe chopping some trees down to get your lumber.
Yeah, no, it happens all the time where people, I guess I'm going to have to do some things myself. But the problem is like, there's only certain things that people have the skill level to do, and you still want to do your projects on the timeline.
Yes.
As we talked about, timelines are almost just as important as the budget. Well, you know, say you want to get in there and do this, this, and this. Okay, well, that's probably going to add 2-4 weeks to your thing. So you're talking lost rent, lost all that stuff. Was it worth it? You know, so that's something that we come across a lot.
Yeah, really appreciate you kind of laying this out and breaking it down for us. And it's probably been a while since we talked about like your exact process or preferred process. So let's say someone's been sitting on the sidelines watching these videos. Maybe they've submitted an offer, maybe it got accepted. At what point in time in the process would you recommend they reach out to you or any contractor?
Honestly, I would try to be involved before you submit the offer. The earlier in the process, the better. That way, you're not surprised by what you think the ballpark is. So, like as I always tell people, whether it's me or another contractor, you know, that's on your team. You know, it doesn't mean, you know. So you know, I get this 3-5 times a week is that people will present me a deal. Say, can you just run through the photos and the listing here and tell me what you think? So, you know, take me 3-5 minutes of my time, right? And then you could tell them, well, I think it's going to run between this dollar and this dollar. So at least they can make a halfway educated decision, and that way they're not shocked after they've already firmed up on the deal and now they're stuck with it. So it's unless you work with his team wholesaling it, but I mean, with most of the deals that are out there on MLS listings, you're not wholesaling, right? So it's something that the earliest in the possible, if not during the shopping process, you know, having the guy on your team. And the worst comes to absolute worst, after you get that house under contract for either like the home inspection, which is, you know, good luck getting one right now, but as soon as possible, get them out there, identify the issues, identify the process, because, you know, as you know, drawings and say you're going to do a duplex, for example, drawings and all that take time. And most of these deals are like 30-day closings, 45-day closings, and that's going to chew up all your time. So you want to start immediately, get the contractor out there, get the BCAN designer out there, and get it ready. So on closing day, you're ready to fire. You know, there's not a lot of time to waste. Now, if you're just going to do like a burr renovation or something like that, then you have a little bit more time. But the earlier in the process, the contractor's involved, he can start sourcing out his material. You don't want to wait till like 4 days before closing and then select your contractor and expect that he's going to have everything ready and going. So it's just, that's the whole process.
Yeah. Really appreciate you breaking that down for us. And I think there was a big point John made there, guys, that you might have overlooked is like, don't be afraid to even like when you're starting the shopping process, have a quick conversation with a contractor, because like I have seen people make pretty big mistakes when they were left alone the first time trying to get into a project. Hey, I just found a beautiful bungalow. I want to convert it into a duplex, You know, I just went firm on it. Now I'm going to go find my contractor. And he's telling me there's going to be issues because the ceiling's 5'10". WTF. And it's like, hey, man, like, had you just spoken briefly with a contractor, they would have been able to explain to you, like, hey, there's some red flags here on this property. Make sure you look at the ceiling height. Make sure we check out a few of these things. You got separate entrance already. You know, like these things could really balloon in cost if we're not careful. And again, if you know a handful of these rules of thumb, you'll be able to set yourself up a lot better to find a property that's likely going to fit your business model.
And if you're having a hard time finding a contractor and you're looking like, say it's a duplex process, another great resource is your BCIN designer for the basic rule of thumbs for what the property is going to be. They might not help you with the cost front, but they'll at least be able to tell you, you know, don't buy a house with 6'1" ceilings in Brantford, because you can't do a basement suite with them. And then all of a sudden the single family home does not make sense. So it's like, don't be afraid. Just put a few people on your team. We're all willing to help. Like, I mean, I help 10, 20 people a week with just basic questions. It's not about the money. It's about the later return, right? So it's people are out here to help.
Yeah. Really appreciate it, John. And it comes through obviously on these videos that you're always willing to help. So again, we'll throw a link to all of John's contact information in the video description down below, guys. As we mentioned on a previous video, he is expanding. So he's now working out, or like he's got a team now working out of London. They're looking to potentially expand to Windsor as well as the Peterborough area. And hey, wouldn't you guys know, we wholesale in all those areas as well. So lots of deals going on in those places and lots of opportunities. And we definitely see a lot of activity from real estate investors. So before we wrap up, any other last words of wisdom in regards to just what's going on in the renovation construction market, John?
It's kind of the same message, but I based on dates and looking at vaccine rollouts and all that stuff and the way our province is going, I expect this to last into at least deep fall.
Yeah.
So just remember, things are going to cost more. They're going to take longer. And, sometimes, even for me to say this way, sometimes it's worth walking away from something right now that the numbers don't make sense. Don't be super emotional on the numbers, right? It's a business. The numbers, it's 1 and 1 equals 2, right? So it's something that I've seen recently a couple emotional buying decisions, and even for me looking at the numbers and then the rental costs, because the rental costs aren't going to change based on what you paid for the house, right? The number is
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sometimes it doesn't make a sense at all, even to me, but we're still here to help. So just, make wise decisions right now. Things are going to take longer. Things are going to cost more. And it's going to be like this for a while now until we're into a somewhat of a normal life again. But suppliers are also, I'm sure, enjoying these prices too. So I don't expect them going down to pre-pandemic levels anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of wise words there. Always appreciate John. Links in the video description down below. And we'll be back next month with more videos from John.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again to John for taking the time to shoot this video. If you guys got value from this video, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new to my channel, and let us know in the comment section down below what's your experience. Are you guys currently struggling to find PVC pipe? Is there insulation? Can you find drywall? What's the price of lumber? There's some crazy things going on. It's important we stay up to date, and I'd love to hear what's going on in your local market because, hey, this was really just my and John's experiences, but I think that they're becoming universal to every Canadian real estate investor. Let us know in the comment section down below.